Hello everyone, my name's Phil Calvert and a very warm welcome to the Financial Advisor Mastermind and Challenge. Throughout this week, advisors, leading experts and consultants to the financial planning profession are sharing amazing insights into just what makes a world-class financial advice business. Today, I'm delighted to be speaking with someone who is one of the UK's top online influencers to the accountancy profession. He's the UK's leading accountancy futurist, and he speaks, writes and advises accountants on how to future-proof their business. Welcome, Mr. Mark Lee. How are you today, Mark?
I'm fine, thanks, Phil. Thanks very much for having me.
Great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. It's very much appreciated. Now, what I didn't mention there, but I'll mention it now, is as obviously you're a chartered accountant, but I understand you're also a member of the Magic Circle. Combining those two together, there ought to be a joke there somewhere, but I can't quite think of it.
Let's pass on that. But yeah, in fact, I'm treasurer of the Magic Circle, as well as historically having been a children's party entertainer at some stage as well.
Really? Is that how you got into it?
That's exactly how I got into magic and presenting as well. So one of the reasons I'm so comfortable on stage is I've been presenting to audiences since the age of 14. Wow. Although in those days it was at children's parties, very different to accountancy conferences or financial advisors conferences.
I love an expert and a speaker who's got a skill like that. Do you use that when you're working with clients or when you're on stage?
Yeah, when I'm speaking on stage, there's always a touch of magic in there and references to magic as well. It's the same in your world as it is in mine. So many people just want us to be able to wave a magic wand. I wish I had one there to make things happen. When actually, if you want things to be different in your profession, in your career, in your job, in practice, whatever, you're the one who actually has to take action. So I often whip out my magic wand and wave it and say, look, nothing happens when I do that. Magic isn't real.
That's really interesting. I mean, making things happen is a theme that's been running through a lot of these interviews that I'm doing. When you look at the accountancy world, the accountancy profession and the practices you work with, I'm assuming what you'll see is a few at the top that are really doing exciting, groundbreaking things, and the vast majority aren't really changing because they're doing things the way they've always done. Would that be fair?
That's absolutely exactly how it works in the accountancy profession, Phil. I often, when I'm talking to people who want to get to know accountants better, or they want to build referral relationships with accountants, or even sell to accountants, I often break the profession down to three groups. You've got the startups, sort of bottom 10%, if you like, who don't have any money to invest, but will say yes to anything in the hope that maybe you're going to refer business to them. Then you've got the middle 70 to 80% who are comfortable. Some might say they're complacent. Now, many of these practices will be one or two partners or sole practitioners, maybe with one or two partners. They might be making anything from 50, 150, 250,000 pound a head. But wherever that figure is, many of them, most of them are comfortable. They're not desperately seeking new business. They're not desperately seeking to grow their practice. They've got where they are. They're comfortable with it. And yes, there are practices doing a lot better than them, but the time and effort involved to grow their practice doesn't appeal. And then at the top, then you've got the larger practices. And it's perhaps worth helping your audience here to appreciate that the UK accountancy profession, you can ask 10 people and you'll get 12 different answers as to how many different accountants there are, how many different accountancy firms there are in the UK. A working number is, let's say there's 30,000 firms of accountants in the UK. How many of those 30,000 are in the top 100? Oh, it's 100. How many are in the top 200? Oh, it's 200. Quite clearly, the vast majority are not in the top band. And you know, once you get outside the top 100 firms, you're talking about sub 5 million turnover. And it starts to tail off very, very quickly. And so that the vast majority of accountancy firms in the UK are turning over something between 50 grand and 500 grand. Many of them in the middle of that. And that's very different to what outsiders expect.
That's really interesting. So when I got started in the financial services industry, working with financial advisors in 1978, and when I look really closely at financial advisors, yes, things have obviously changed. There's lots of things, whether it's been regulation, whether it's technology, things have changed. But in many ways, the way a financial advice firm works today isn't an awful lot different from how it used to be back in the early 80s. Is that the case in the accountancy profession as well?
The accounting profession has evolved enormously. Over 20 years ago, we had the introduction of the self-assessment tax return system,
Yeah.
and then the abolishment of the small company audit. When I started in accountancy, every small company needed its annual accounts to be audited, and many accountancy firms based their income and their business model around the fact that people had to have an audit of every small company. That's not the case anymore. Most accountants don't do audits, and if they do, they only do one or two, very small number. So in that respect, it's changed enormously. The other thing that is changing for many firms, but not all, with the introduction of something that hit the main press itself, Ltd Making Tax Digital. It comes into effect for businesses that are above the VAT threshold, VAT registration threshold, with about £85,000, comes into effect from the 1st of April this year. Requires every business to retain its records in digital format and to make VAT returns in a quarterly way directly from its cloud accounting software. Now, some accountants have migrated all their clients into the cloud ready for that. Many haven't. They're using something called bridging software, which is allowed for the moment to take information and data from spreadsheets and put that through to the Revenue's website. The Revenue promise they're going to be quite gentle in terms of penalties for a while. Large numbers of accountants are saying, hey, you know what? This is a step too far. I'm not going to make that transition. I'm going to retire or sell my practice or move on. Others are waiting and seeing how serious the change is, what they're really going to have to do. The more go-ahead firms have been talking to their clients about it for the last 2 years. And that, again, shows you three very different approaches to dealing with a major change that's impacting the profession.
Yeah.
The other thing that's changing, and it's partly related to that, is the introduction of cloud accounting together with robotic process automation, artificial intelligence, intelligent automation, if you like. This all means that over the next 5 to 10 years, far more of the compliance work that most accountants do will be automated. It will be simpler. It will be streamlined. Now, that means accountants will need to evolve their practices so they're better placed either to take on loads more clients that only need the sort of the simple stuff or the specialist bit that the accountant has to do that the automated software can't do, or, and this is what's generally encouraged, the accountants will have to evolve their practices so they're better placed to give more advice rather than simply addressing the compliance needs of the client. And that requires a huge shift in mentality because, and I'm sure it's the same with financial advisors, financial planners and the like, when we qualified as accountants, and I did, as you said, qualify as a chartered accountant a long time ago. When we qualified, we didn't qualify with the expectation that we would spend our lives completing tax returns and preparing accounts and doing the bookkeeping. And yet, in many cases, many smaller firms of accountants have built their practices around that paperwork, those obligations. And clients only come to accountants for the paperwork to prepare tax returns and file them, prepare accounts and file them, because there's a legal obligation, there's a threat of penalties if they don't do it, and they can't do it themselves. And that's why, sadly, a lot of people go to accountants in the first place. Once it becomes that much easier for the small business to do their books themselves, and the software is almost there, particularly for the unincorporated businesses, there's less need for them to go to an accountant. At this stage, they still need an accountant, most of them, to help them file regular VAT returns and annual returns with the revenue. It's not crucial, but most people do want help with that. That's going to tail off over the next few years, which means accountants will have to become better at giving advice to clients, whether that's financial advice, financial budgeting, financial projections, strategic financial advice, strategic business advice. Now, I look at it as a fantastic opportunity because actually that's what we trained to do. It's what we wanted to do. It's why we became accountants. And indeed, it's all I do now. I work almost exclusively with accountants, helping them to build more successful practices, whether that's through evolving the practice ready for the future and what that's going to deliver, or through learning how to stand out from their competition in the crowd so they can attract more and better business. I left the profession, stopped giving accounting and tax advice in 2006, and I never want to go back.
Right, yeah. That's really some great similarities. This is why I wanted to really to talk to you today, because whilst firms of accountants and firms of financial advisors are obviously different, there's a lot of similarity in terms of the structure of the business, the issues and the challenges and the opportunities as well. Interesting, I've also been looking at dental practices as well. Yeah. Again, remarkably similar across the piece. So you've talked about a technology there, and I know one or two financial advisors use some of the smaller firms. They use Free Agent, I think it is, yeah, which can do the vast majority of, well, certainly the VAT returns and a lot else besides. What are the big disruption moments that are ahead? Everyone's talking about disruption. In the accountancy world, what are the big issues that some people are putting their heads in the sand about?
Well, I've already alluded to the main disruptors in the accountancy profession over the next few years, Making Tax Digital, and the gradual increase of the obligations there to go beyond VAT returns to income tax returns and corporation tax returns as well. And then the introduction of artificial intelligence, robotic process automation, simplifying a lot of the paperwork and the management of the paperwork that accountants have historically spent time and effort on. This is going to free them up to be better placed to give advice to clients, and the disruptor is going to come because that's a service of giving business advice. Many accountants have done this sort of as part of their annual service to clients, yeah, but many accountants haven't. And those that have sort of almost given it away as part of their annual service are going to want to charge for it in the future. And the reason that this is going to be a big disruptor is because historically, accountants have provided a service that clients have wanted and needed from them, that they've been willing to pay for, because the client almost knows the value, if you like. They know that the accountant's going to help them avoid problems with the revenue, sort their stuff out, make sure they file everything on time. They won't have penalties, there won't be interest. They'll understand what the cash flows are in terms of their tax. They'll have complied with all their filing obligations. There's a value around that, even if the accountant can't articulate it.
Yeah.
When it comes to giving strategic business advice or business planning, financial advice, the accountant's going to have to put a value on that, help the client understand the value of the service they're going to be delivering. And one of the reasons I'm talking to accountants about this now is that even though it's not immediately around the corner, the sooner they start developing what I call key business skills, the sooner they're going to be able to demonstrate and provide and offer their services and convert and complete the sales of those services with clients. Because if they leave it until they really need to be providing those services, they're going to find that they're competing with business mentors, business coaches, all sorts of other people. Indeed, why not independent financial advisors, advisors, financial planners, paraplanners, and the like. Yeah, if anyone, no offense intended, if anyone can complete tax returns and prepare accounts using the software facilities that are out there, why not financial advisors? Indeed, I remember going back, I could probably go back over 20 years when I first encountered financial advisors who did do personal tax returns for clients. And 20 years on, I still don't understand why that hasn't become mainstream.
That's really interesting.
It could well do in the future as it becomes easier, if you like, and there's artificial intelligence to help the financial advisor address those issues that they might have been scared of taking on themselves.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So, do you think then that we'll see the relationships between financial advisors and accountants coming closer together again? Because, years ago, when I was a young broker consultant, I used to visit firms of accountants who had financial advisors in the building, because there was a natural passing of clients, and then the two parted. Accountants decided they didn't want to do financial advice. But do you actually see them coming back together again?
I think it's perfectly feasible. I think it's more likely to happen in the way I just outlined, that the financial advisors will start doing the tax return related work. What I've often seen is accountants who've had their fingers burned in the past in a relationship with financial advisors that didn't work, or where they felt that the advisors left their clients down, or the advisors didn't prioritize their clients. And there was always this challenge that the accountant wanted to charge for their time and the advisor was being remunerated out of commissions under the old system.
Yeah.
And I see an increasing number of accountants who are willing to build relationships with financial advisors of one sort or another, but different types of accountants are subject to different types of regulations, and that limits the relationships that they can have. So, for example, I sit on the Members and Commercial Board at the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales. It's the biggest, most prestigious members organisation and a disciplinary organisation as well for accountants. But it's only one of about 10 different professional bodies for accountants in the UK. The reason I mention it is because it's in Moorgate Place in London. It's headquartered there. Also headquartered in Moorgate Place in London is St James's Partners, St James Investment Wealth. I'm sorry.
St James's Place.
St James's Place,
yeah,
absolutely. Well, St James's Place, as I understand it, are largely tied agents, and members of the ICAW are not allowed to refer business to tied agents. Now, I understand there are ways in which one can address that, but it does mean that the relationships between those two bodies are not as close as one might expect, given their physical proximity to each other in Moorgate Place.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the work that you do with clients. You've talked about practice management, marketing, those kind of things. What typically do you find yourself doing?
Well, I suppose, thank you for asking. There's two sides to it directly. From standing on stage speaking at events for larger firms, international associations of accountants, I'm talking about the future. What does the future hold? How can you prepare for it, evolve for it? Recognize it's going to be different. There is no one future coming that's going to affect everybody in the same way. And it's one of the mistakes that I think a lot of futurists make. And it's fascinating seeing people talking about robots and new technology. But when you start bringing it down to how it's going to impact the accountancy profession, it's not quite as exciting. And it will vary depending upon the age profile of the firm themselves, the age profile of their clients, the type of work they're currently doing, and so on. There's a whole raft of issues that I help the audiences to understand and appreciate in an entertaining and illuminating way. When I'm not on stage doing that, then I do provide offer some consultancy to larger firms as well. Often they find that I've priced myself out in the market there, and I introduce others who will do that work rather than me, because I'm very happy working on a one-to-one basis with the sole practitioners, those who run their own practices, because quite frankly, they don't have to get their partners to make a decision to invest money with me. Either they will or they won't. And I mentor accountants on a one-to-one basis. I run live roundtable mastermind groups for sole practitioners who can get to London. And I do a fair amount online as well. I've got a huge arsenal of blog posts, articles, freebies.
Did I read somewhere, what was it? I made a note about it. Is it Accounting Web? That's right, Accounting Web. You had over 1 million views?
Yeah, I was a consulting practice editor for Accounting Web for a while, largest online portal for accountants in the UK. I wrote over 200 articles for them and totted up to well over 1 million views. This was in the days when they used to show the incremental number of views on each post. Yeah. And at some point, I must have started making a note of this. And then each week, as I posted another article, I checked what the views were on the previous week's article and add that in. And at one point, I just decided to add them all up and thought, over 1 million, that's ridiculous. And then I thought, actually, it's not that mad, really. And it would be well over that now, because 200 articles at an average 5,000 views takes you to 1 million. Sorry, that's the accountant in me. Popped back again.
Yeah.
So I did enjoy that.
So when we think about where we started today, talking about the split between the real go-getting firms, the ones that are doing it, and then the broad mass of everybody else, when you go into a smaller firm who might be in that that main body of professionals, clearly some of them stand out from the crowd. What are the ones that are really going places doing? What do they do differently in their businesses from the ones that aren't?
Well, I'd say there's two or three things. One is they are building collaborative relationships with other suppliers and other providers, and they're not scared of doing it. Because one of the things that holds accountants back is a fear that a third-party supplier, be that a financial advisor or a lawyer or a will writer or whatever, is that they're either going to nick their clients and refer them on to another accountant, or they're going to get embarrassed by this other advisor who's going to say, hasn't your accountant talked to you about this yet? Or they can't be introducing their clients to another advisor because the client expects them to be able to give that advice. And let's not forget, there's still a huge number of people out there who think of their accountant as being the first port of call for giving financial advice, even that which is regulated that the accountant often isn't able to provide.
Yeah.
You see some accountants who are qualifying in order to be able to give regulated advice, or certainly a degree of it. Maybe they are moving into probate work, which is a great revenue stream and makes far more sense accountants doing it than lawyers. The other thing that really marks those accountants out is where they genuinely are focused around giving strategic business advice to clients, and they're doing the compliance work, the accounts and the tax returns, almost as a side issue, rather than focusing on, we do accounts and tax returns, and would you buy some business advice from us as well? And I'm beginning to see a change in the way that some of the real go-getting accountants' websites make this obvious. I often tell accountants to stop putting stuff on their website that makes them look the same as everybody else.
Yeah.
Your average person knows that you do accounts and tax returns, and there's no point spelling out what that means. You're an accountant, of course that's what you do. But if you want to attract higher fee-paying clients, those that are going to test you and give you the opportunity to demonstrate real advice, real value, then you don't really want to attract people who are coming to you looking for a low-cost compliance service. So the websites, LinkedIn profiles that make clear that we're into giving you advice, and here's a load of testimonials, recommendations from clients who've loved what we've done for them and will happily testify how we've helped them. That's really powerful and really makes those accountants stand out from the pack.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What about the marketing side of things? I would imagine that good quality accountants are going to be getting referrals, just like financial advisors do. What else do they get up to on the marketing side of things?
If you ask your average accountant where they get most of their new clients from, almost inevitably they will say from referrals. When you dig down, you find that most of the accountants who get asked that question haven't won that many new clients. They don't really know where they've come from, but they're pretty certain that they were referred one person to another. One of the major differences between accountants and financial advisors, and indeed lawyers, and I always laugh whenever anybody tells me that they're a specialist marketing advisor to accountants and lawyers. I laugh because I know that they're not. Yes. They're a specialist probably to lawyers, and they might have one or two accountancy firms. The reason that they're unlikely to specialize in both is because actually their marketing needs, whilst you might expect them to be very similar, are actually very different. The reason for that, which I've already alluded to, is that accountants' clients come back year after year after year.
Yeah.
Lawyers' clients don't. Financial advisors earn more in the first year, I would imagine, than they do from trail and recurring work down the line, generally. Not across the board. But accountants, once they reach the peak level that they can for their practice, they're not seeking loads of new clients. What they want are better quality clients. And I talk to a lot of accountants who aren't looking to grow their practice. What they're looking to do is to be given the confidence to sack some of the dross that they've had for years.
Yeah.
and to attract in better quality clients rather than lots more clients. And there's a big tip that I share there when I'm running my half-day courses for people who want to build better relationships with accountants. One of the big tips I share there is, don't think that you can refer loads of work to accountants before you find out exactly what referrals they will value. Because if you're referring to them people who just want a tax return or just want accounts done, they're probably not going to thank you for it.
Yeah, it's interesting. And are any of them doing things like podcasting and hitting social media hard? I mean, I know a lot of these things are sort of set up as this is nirvana, this is how you're going to do it. I think the financial advisors that use social media and other tools like that, the ones that are using it well, realizing that it's only a marketing tool very, very indirectly.
Yeah.
And it's more of a vehicle to have conversations and maybe build a bit of personal branding as much as anything else.
You're absolutely right, Phil, and we've talked about this before in other contexts. A lot of accountants jump on the social media bandwagon thinking it's a route to new clients. One of the things it says on my Business Garden website is that I'm a debunker, and I debunk the hype and myths and misconceptions around a lot of marketing gubbins, marketing guff that's pushed to accountants, and that includes the expectation that somehow being on Twitter or being on Facebook is going to generate clients. Like you, I'm a great advocate of LinkedIn for accountants, and what I don't see are accountants making as much use of LinkedIn as they could be in order to connect with local business people, the type of people that they would like to build relationships with, in the hope that at some stage in the future those people will think of them as an accountant when they have a need to change accountants.
Yeah.
And it's something I talk accountants through, is understanding the strategy they can use in order to get great value from LinkedIn in their way, in their world, as you do in the financial advisory world. I've seen accountants who've tried podcasts, I've seen accountants who've tried webinars, I've seen accountants who've tried creating a YouTube channel. I know one accounting firm, I won't name them, probably 5 or 6 years ago, the managing partner did a whole series, I think 35 videos on YouTube, built them up with a really nice bulk bank of good quality advice shot outside. He clearly enjoyed it. Yes, he likes the sound of his own voice. I don't know him personally, but I thought this was, if this was going to work for anybody, it was going to work for them. It was focused enough around him and his personality, as well as the backup and support he'd had from his firm. If it was going to work for anyone, it would have worked for him. After 30, he stopped doing it, and I looked at the view numbers, and none of the view numbers were above 50 on any of the videos that he did.
Yeah.
I doubt it generated enough business to warrant the time and effort. And frankly, I doubt it's changed, because if somebody's looking for an accountant, they might use, well, they're going to ask around, they're going to look online, they're going to see what Google throws up, they may well look at YouTube. Frankly, I don't think many people looking for a new accountant are going to think to use YouTube to search, any more than if I was looking for a financial advisor, I would look at YouTube to find a financial advisor. It doesn't strike me, or I suspect most people, as the place to go in order to find a service rather than a product.
Yeah, that's interesting. Tell us a little bit more about your referral workshop. I know that's something that you're looking to build.
Yeah, well, it's something I've done over the years. I haven't run one for a while, but I had a booklet that I was giving away free. It's still available free from my website. The number has changed over the years. It's now 15. The subtitle is The 15 Biggest Mistakes Most People unwittingly make when they approach accountants for business or referrals.
Okay.
And it sets out a number of things we've talked about today and a whole host of other issues. And what I found is that a fair number of people who read this want to know, well, what more can they do? The booklet's got some tips in it, but can they get some real input, ideas, and advice from the horse's mouth? They don't want to pay me on a consultancy basis. That's going to be too costly. I'm not as cheap as I was 10 years ago. So coming to a half-day workshop with anything from sort of 15 to 50 people in the room, really drilling down and getting to the nitty-gritty of how can they build better relationships with accountants to get more referrals from accountants, to get more accountants to introduce them to the type of clients that they want. I mean, it is obvious, isn't it? And it appeals to lots of people, not just financial advisors, to trainers, marketing people, lawyers, bankers, all sorts of people who are targeting small businesses go, hey, instead of going directly to the small business, why don't I go to an accountant who's got all the people I would like as clients? They've already got a relationship with the accountant. Yeah. If I can get the accountant to refer me, that would work really well.
Go where the fish are already swimming, yeah.
Exactly. And whilst that idea works in theory, most people execute it very, very badly. They start out with a host of misconceptions and misunderstandings about accountants. As I say, I've alluded to some of them already today. There's a host more. And the last time I ran the masterclass, which wasn't for a while, I got a couple of lovely recommendations afterwards. I think they're probably still on LinkedIn. One guy said, it's amazing. He said, I put into practice what you told me, and all of a sudden accountants are ringing me back and I'm getting referrals from them. If only I'd heard that 10 years ago, I wouldn't have wasted so much time.
Yes, that is so true. I've interviewed a guy called Bill Cates, who is a specialist referral expert for financial advisors out in the States. And time again in his testimonials, one of the things that come up time and time again is exactly what you just said. If only I had followed this years ago or done this, I would have the clients I actually want. So, and I'm sure financial advisors have got good relationships with accountants, but from what I hear you're saying, I think is that the relationships could be so much better and much more focused.
Absolutely, 100%, and that's what I'm going to be looking to deliver in the masterclasses. I'm only going to do 3 a year, and it'll be first come, first served.
Fantastic. So one of the things that we're doing as part of this online mastermind is we're asking each of our guests to set a little challenge for our viewers, and they'll have the opportunity to join a private group, and they can pick and choose the challenges that they want to take up. Some of the challenges are quite long and complicated, some of them are quite short and easy, but they can join a group and get accountability partners, explain how they're getting on, and so on. So if you were setting a challenge, Mark, what would that be for our financial advisor friends?
Well, the challenge that I would offer is to have at least one in-depth conversation with a local accountant who could be referring work to you, and find out what you can do for them, what type of clients they would appreciate being referred to them, and start with that, and then look around in order to make just such a referral to an accountant. We all know the old adage, givers gain, pay it forward. You are far more likely to build a profitable relationship with an accountant if you go first, and you can't introduce somebody to an accountant that's really worthwhile for them until you know what they would consider a good value referral. And I'd extend the challenge a little further, which is to push the accountant that you talk to help you to be more specific. One of the common mistakes accountants make is they'll talk about a business. I want a business more businesses that are turning over between £500,000 and £1 million with 10 employees, and maybe they're in this sector or that sector. And you pause them and you stop them and say, no. I can't refer you to a business. I can refer you to an individual. It might be a business owner. It might be the managing director of the business. It might be the sales director of the business. It might be the HR director. Who am I looking for as a person? Now, by doing that and pushing the accountant to be more specific, you're helping them to articulate something that isn't just relevant to the conversation they have with you, but to other people. You're also showing that you really care and that you're genuine in asking about how you could make a valuable referral to them.
And if financial advisors want to talk to you or find out more about your workshops, where can they find you, Mark?
Well, online generally, I'm Bookmark Lee. That's on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. That's BOOKMARKLEE. My website's bookmarklee.co.uk. I also have a special domain, referralsfromaccountants.co.uk, and that'll take you straight to the page where you can register your interest in the free booklet and also in potential masterclasses in the future. That's referralsfromaccountants.co.uk.
Referralsfromaccountants.co.uk. It does what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
Mark, thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate your time. There'll be some great value there. So many similarities between the two professions. And I'm sure if there was more cooperation, there could be more quality business written.
Sure.
So that's it for today. Thanks to everybody for watching. Really enjoyed it. And please do join there'll be a link below to give you an opportunity to join the private group where you can take on some of the challenges, get an accountability partner, and make things happen in your business. That's it for today. Thanks very much for watching.